Hello to everybody out there. I hope you are able to hear me. If you are, could you quickly, we're not starting quite yet, we got 2 minutes, but could you tell me if you hear me? And the other thing that would be helpful too, if you're here, is just to tell me if you can see my screen. Yes. Excellent. Thank you, Eric. I really do appreciate that. Hopefully everybody else can hear me. Yes. That is so exciting. I'm glad to hear that. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you, Jay. Hopefully that was correct. Thank you so much, guys. It's good to have you here tonight. We're going to get started in 1 minute. We just have a 1 minute countdown here. We're almost ready to go. I know you guys are excited for DBQ. Is there anybody else here tonight with us, or we just have the three of you guys? That's okay. It's good to have a small group that will have for good conversations, I'm sure. Sunny, it's good to have you. Thank you so much for joining us all the way out in Arizona. I'm sure you guys have great weather right now. Minnesota's got cool and breezy weather. My sister used to live in Minnesota. I actually visited there once in Mankato in November. And believe it or not, it wasn't as cold as it usually gets, but I thought it was cold being from California. So, okay, guys, it is 5 o'clock. So at my time, it's 5 o'clock. It's probably 8 o'clock your time, or if you're from another part of the country, I'm sure it's another time. Let's do this because I want to see how many people we have here with us tonight. We are in the midst of February and March. That is a crazy time in school. So really quick, I just want to see from you guys, if you are feeling happy and positive and like things are going well for you right now, could you type in like a number 1 or give me like a happy face emoji or something that tells me that, man, this is a good time of the year for me. And if you're not, if you're feeling a little anxious, a little tired, a little fatigued, a little uncertain about the way things are going right now, can you go ahead and type in for me a number 2 or maybe something, some kind of emoji that expresses the fact that things are just not quite there for you right now. Jay, I'm so sorry. I see the sad face, and I'm here to pick you up tonight. Sunny, that looks like it's a happy face. I'm not sure it's an upside down happy face, so I'm not quite sure how to take that, but I'm going to go with happy for you. Katie, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm so sorry to hear that you're sad. But I'm hoping my positive attitude is going to bring you guys up, and I promise you I'm going to work hard at that. So anybody else got something to tell me tonight? Are you happy, positive, and excited? If you are a number 1 or a happy face. Not so much. Give me a number 2 or give me some kind of sad face emoji and let me know so that I can be your person here to lift you up tonight. Okay, so I have Katie's telling me she's doing okay-ish, kind of fine. She's going to be okay. She's laughing out loud, and that's important. I like to see that. Okay, I think we got to get going because I only have a few people here tonight, and that's okay because we are going to be positive with the 3 or 4 people we have. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. My name is James Zucker. I'll just give you a little bit of background to myself just so you know who I am. I teach out in sunny Southern California, although it's kind of funny because right now it is actually raining and pouring in Southern California, which is a little bit of a different stretch for us than usual. And things are a little crazy out here, as it might be out there for you as well. I know a lot of things are going on out in the world right now that are causing people a little bit of uncertainty and a little bit of anxiety, but I am here tonight to give you something. Yes, Sunny, exactly. That is what's doing it for us out here. But I'm here to bring you guys up and to remove one of those planks of anxiety and talk a little bit about the DBQ. So thank you so much for joining. Oh yeah, I teach AP World History. I also teach AP US History. And I have worked for the College Board on a number of occasions and helped them out with stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that I can bring to this, although I have to say I am excited to work with you guys, and I really do mean that. It really is important. Whoa, you're from Riverside, Katie. Excellent. So you are very familiar with the context that I'm in today. Good to see that I have another fellow Californian out here. Logan, thank you for joining us all the way out from New York. Awesome place to be. Whenever I get to visit New York, there's just never enough time to do all the stuff you guys have out there. It is a great place to be. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. I have to say it's such an honor, and I really do mean that, to join up, because the way I look at it is this. I'm working with some really smart people here. Now, you're probably saying, wait a second, Zucker, how do you know that I'm smart? You don't know me. And you're right, I don't know you, but here's what I do know. Number one, you're in AP World History, or you've taken AP World History. So if you've done that, you've decided to challenge yourself in a college level class. Plus, on top of that, you've chosen outside of school to come here and do this tonight for me, the afternoon. So that tells me you are somebody who works very hard and you want to do well. So it's really exciting for me that you want to be a part of this. So my hope tonight, or this afternoon, wherever you're at in the country, is that we can have a little bit of a conversation as we go along. I want to help you guys out with the DBQ. Okay, so let's get going. So the DBQ, yeah, I usually like to call it to my classroom, the beast of an essay. And there's a reason why I like to call it that. I'm sure you guys have felt that way too at some point when you've come across the DBQ. And that's because the DBQ has a lot of moving parts to it. I'm sure that whenever you come across that kind of essay, you're just like, oh my gosh, where am I supposed to begin and do this stuff? This is crazy, right? But here's the awesome thing about it. If you've taken AP World History in the past or taken another AP History class, you probably know this. Out of all the work you have to do, students kind of fall in love with the DBQ. Okay, maybe that's overstating it, maybe not fall in love. But by the end of the year, it's their favorite part of the test. And here's why. Unlike the other parts of the test, the DBQ gives you something to work with, right? Gives you some documents to work with. And so by the end of the year, if you know how to use these documents, you don't feel like you're kind of floating out in space, trying to figure it all out. And what are you supposed to do? You're actually given something that instigates you and that gets you going as far as the essay question goes. So what's the big problem then? Why do so many students have such a hard time with the DBQ? I would suggest the following, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this when we get deeper into the presentation. I think the reason why students get kind of freaked out about the DBQ is two reasons. One, what I said before, it's just a lot of moving parts. That's usually the reason why. And Eric, thank you for jumping in and saying that, because I agree with you. I think most teachers talk about that and say, this is the way students feel throughout the year. You'll find almost any teacher across the country is going to say, at the beginning of the year, it's the beast of an essay. By the end of the year, it's like, wow, that was my favorite part of the test. So number one, they get kind of crazed at the beginning of the year because there's so many moving parts. And the second reason why I think students kind of get freaked out by the DBQ is, under time pressure, how do you deal with all that information they're throwing at you and organize it into an essay? I know, like for me, I always tell my students, when I was in high school, I was not a great writer. It took me a long time to be a decent writer. There was sort of this moment when I was in college where I felt like I became a good writer. And then even now, I always have to revise and get better at it. But every once in a while, I sit down to do the DBQ that I gave to my students. And oh my gosh, I struggle. And I'm a teacher. I should not have to struggle with this, right? But I'm trying to get into the seats of my students so I can kind of understand why. When you're given this much information, how do you break it down? And then how do you organize it? And that's what I want to do for you guys tonight. I want to give you guys a method on how to do this. So here's my overall agenda. Gave you the introduction. We did that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to break down the prompt and take a look, like, how do you look at a prompt, an essay question? I want to take a look at, what are documents? Why do they even give you this stuff? Like, is this just this thing we do, these documents, or is there a reason behind this? And there is. There's a reason behind it that we should take a look at. I also want to take a look at something that I got from another AP teacher called Happy Tones. It's called the Happy Tones method. The guy who created it is a guy in AP US history. His name is Bill Pulaski. I want to give him credit. And I've used this for several years now, and I think it's a great way to analyze documents. Then we're actually going to do some document analysis. I'm going to take a look at the DBQ from last year that AP World looked at, and I'm going to show you guys how you can work with that using something called the box method. And again, got to give credit to a teacher. Woohoo! This particular teacher I work with at my school, and she is absolutely amazing. Her name is Paige Burkholder, and she came up with this idea called the box method of analyzing documents. So I want to go over that, show you guys how to do that. And then we're going to create some patterns for how to do that. And then I'm going to finish with an essay model. And here we go. I'm going to give you another teacher that I stole this from. Man, my gosh, I am a thief of teachers. I'm telling you, call me Pirate Zucker. So basically, this idea was taken by a guy named Bill Ziegler. Bill Ziegler is famous within the AP World History community. We're sort of all groupies of Bill Ziegler. I know. If you're a student, you're like, really? Really? You're a groupie of this guy? But actually, he's really cool. He does a lot of work for AP World History. He's a major leader in the reading at the end of the year. And so I'm going to tell you his model for how he does this stuff because it works out really well. So anyways, let's jump into this. Any questions so far really quick? Anybody want to bring up anything? Doesn't have to be about the DBQ. It could just be, hey, you like the Lakers? Yes, I do, which is why I'm very upset that the NBA is closed down. Anybody got any questions? Okay, doesn't look like it. So let's get going. So whenever you come across a prompt, here's what I want you to do. Very specific things that are really important. You're going to start by looking for 3 big things in any prompt that you're going to see. The very first thing that I want you guys to look for inside of a prompt is going to be the historical thinking skill. Now, for those of you guys in AP World History, you probably know what I'm talking about, right? Your teachers have probably talked about this for a long time in your classes. So the historical thinking skills, there are a whole bunch of them, but these are the big ones I want you guys to remember and always look for. Look for them in long essays, by the way. Look for them in short answers, but especially in the DBQ, you want to look for them here as well because they're going to help you structure your essay. They are cause and effect, change in continuity, comparison and contrast. Now, this is where a lot of times students stop and they think, okay, that's all my historical thinking skills, right? I'm done. No. Still got 2 more. Argumentation. Okay, something that supports an argument, something that disputes an argument or goes against it. And then last off, contextualization. So this is like what you guys do at the beginning of your essays, right? You're asked to contextualize something and see like where it's coming from within a particular time period. So that's the first thing you want to do. Take your pencil to paper and I want you guys to underline where the historical thinking skill is or write it in the margin. Now, the second thing you want to do is take a look at the historical content. What are you being asked to do with this? I mean, you've got like these different historical thinking skills, right? But you got to talk about something. And so you got to look for what kind of historical content they're looking for you to do, okay? And then the last thing you're going to look for is the themes of the prompt, or what I like to call the impact of the prompt. Why impact? So I don't know if many of you guys are. Tell me if you are in the side, because I would love to hear about this. I am a debate coach. I would be really excited to hear if I've got any debaters inside of this room right now, or maybe you just like arguing with friends and family over major political issues. If you are, go ahead and put it in the side. I would love to give you a little props. Okay, I'm an old guy. I have no idea what I'm talking about here. I'm so sorry. Katie, yes, you are a debater. Just really quick as I go on talking, are you Lincoln Douglas or policy or Congress, or what do you do out there in Riverside where you are debating? As she's doing that though, really quick, sorry, I do not know the common lingo for young people. I try to act like I do. Anyways, back to this. So the themes of the prompt are very much like impacts for debaters. And that means, what's the significance? What are you trying to tell people? Like, why are you going for this? Now, there are 3 that I tend to find teachers use a lot. I use the first one, which is inspect. Many of your teachers might use Sprite, Spice. I know there are other ones out there as well. These are just acronyms. I use inspect. It stands for interactions with geography, social, political, economic, cultural, and technological. Okay, so you probably have similar types of things there. Eric, thank you so much for jumping in. You might notice that Eric talked about using pieces, and so you notice probably a lot of similarities there. So Eric, if you want to, feel free to jump in and say like what those stand for, because maybe these acronyms are just acronyms. You want to use the one that works best for you, right? So I like to use inspect with my students. But hey, if Sprite works for you, awesome. Spices there, good. If Pieces works out, awesome. You just use the one that's going to work for you. That's all that matters. And Katie, thank you for coming and saying you debate politics. I love it. That's what I like to do too. So thank you for jumping in on that. So let's take a look at an actual prompt. This particular prompt was given last year, okay, in AP World History. And we're going to take a look at this. And I'm going to take a look at it again because I think it's really important. In a moment, we're going to actually take a look at the documents and analyze them. But this was the DBQ that was given last year. Evaluate the extent to which the Portuguese transformed maritime trade, sorry if I could talk at this point in the day, that would be good, in the Indian Ocean in the 16th century. So we are going to analyze that prompt in just a few minutes. But there's one big thing I want to make a point on that is so important in AP World History. It's not necessarily something that we as teachers like to do. And one day, when you guys are really good writers and you feel comfortable, getting away from this, please do. Or in your English classes, you probably want to get away from it. In AP World History, to start off a prompt, you always want to start off with the language in the prompt. Okay, please do that. I know that might sound really formulaic, and you might be like, but Zucker, seriously? We don't do that. My English teacher would just like, oh, that would be bad. And you're right. For your English teacher, that would be bad, and you wouldn't want to do that. And Eric, thank you very much for defining out pieces. You guys might notice in the right-hand column, Eric is a fellow teacher of mine. We don't work at the same school, but Eric is an amazing teacher, and that is what he uses for his students. So if that works for you, please use it. Okay, use whatever works for you on this test. That's all that's important here. So back to the question, though, really quick. the way you always want to start off a question is like this. You're going to start off by saying, the Portuguese did or did not transform maritime trade in the Indian Ocean in the 16th century because. Now, notice two things I did there, very important. I can't stress this enough, guys. I really can't. I know it sounds formulaic, and I know you wouldn't do this in your English class. But guys, at the AP World History reading, a lot of times what they're going to do is they're actually going to tell the graders. They're going to say they must have a thesis that uses that language to identify the argument, or no points for the thesis. Don't put yourself into a situation where you're going to lose points. Just get used to using that language. Now, at the same time, you cannot just say the Portuguese did or did not transform maritime trade in the Indian Ocean in the 16th century, period. Because if you do that, then you're just repeating the question. Okay, now you're confused, right? Now you're just like, Zucker, what the heck? What are you talking about here? Okay, what you have to do is give what's called added value. Okay, added value. Okay, what do I mean by added value? What I mean is once you've used the language in the prompt, you still have to add on to it. You have to give an historical reason to why that's the case. So whether you're going to argue that the Portuguese did transform trade or they did not, and you can argue either way, you still have to give me a reason why that happened. That's the added value. So start with the language of the prompt, then give me added value, and you can do that simply with the because statement. Okay, so next thing I want to do though before, and we are going to jump into analysis of documents really soon. I know I've been talking for a little while here. It's been like 15 minutes. I've been droning on and on and on. Come on, Zucker, get to the documents. I'm going to, I promise. But I want to go over something that I think is really important, and it's about what the documents actually are. So this is where I think students get really confused. Students see documents and they get all mystified. And all of a sudden it's just like, oh my gosh, these things are like crazy. Like they're just throwing these documents at us and I've got to go through them and like formulaically put them down. That's not what documents are. Documents are not these strange things that you have to work with. And, you know, over the years, I've got to say, I am a little surprised that students feel this way. And here's why. I get it. You know, it's very easy. And I remember as a high school student, I did this. What I did in my science class, what I did in my English class, what I did in my math class was different from history, right? It's not the same thing. And when you're running from history class to math class to English class, you don't think of like that these things combine together in some way. But, you know, English and history are really similar, right? So just think about this for just a second. You know, when it comes to this kind of a thing, you know, when you analyze a book in English, right, what do? You take a quote and you analyze it. Well, that's the exact same thing documents are. Documents are basically just extended quotes that you're analyzing in order to make an argument. That's all it is. Now, one simple rule, though, and make sure you take, if you're taking notes right now, take this down, and I want you to live by this rule, period. Okay, unlike your honors English class, AP English class, whatever English class you're taking, you are not to quote documents for the AP World History test, period. No quotations. Is that because quotations are wrong and evil? No, absolutely not. When you guys get to college, you probably are going to quote some documents for history papers. But what we want to see in AP History is that you can analyze a document. So we want to see it in your own words. So the rule in AP World History, period, is paraphrase. You are always going to paraphrase, period. Okay? I know, right now you're like, but what if no? Paraphrase. There's no exception. I want you paraphrasing all the time. The other word I want you to remember is this, is the word gist. And it's really important because here's what I mean by that. You don't have to read a document like you would in your English class and go deeper and deeper and deeper into the document. You're looking for the overall idea of the document. And we're going to analyze that in context and give our argument, okay? So like in an honors English class or AP English class or a research class where you have extended periods of time to do stuff, yeah, that's where you would go much more into depth. But here, I want you to view the documents as evidence that you're going to give a gist of, and then you're going to work with that, okay, in order to support your arguments, okay? So I've been talking for a long time here, and I am going to get very soon into analysis documents. I want to get you guys involved. But really quick, are there any questions that anybody has so far about the prompt, how to look at the prompt, about documents in general, your sort of like philosophy of documents? Maybe there's something you just want to be like, I'm still feeling anxiety, Zucker. You're not calming me down at all. Is there anything that I could answer right now that you're kind of wondering about or feeling about that you just wanted to bring up really quick? Nothing at all? Not even a question about the Lakers? Okay, I was hoping. Anyways, okay, let's move on to the next thing then. Are you supposed to okay, great. Logan, thank you so much for doing that. So there are two things I would say about that. That's a great question. And it's a question I get a lot of times from my students. You know, is it okay to reference documents by, you know, like document 1 argued blah, 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 right? So Logan, your question's really essential, and I get this from teachers too who ask about this all the time. You know, in a formal college paper, you would never do that. Like that would be like horrible, like poor rhetorical argumentation. It would be really bad as far as citing goes. That is not MLA, Chicago, whatever, right? You would not do that, period. But remember, you're writing for a different audience here. The audience you're writing for is not an audience of a research paper. It's an audience of a timed paper. That's a different audience. And there are two reasons why this matters. So first of all, what matters about it has to do with the graders. At the end of the year, when graders sit down to grade these things, remember, they're grading from 8 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon for 7 days in a row. By the time they get done, they have graded over 1,000 DBQs. Now, the guys who grade this, the men and women across the country, they are nice teachers. They want to help students. They really do. I know, because I've graded with them for years. They really want to give you the points. But, you know, it gets tough. When you're grading from 8 until 5 in the afternoon, you come across a paper with bad handwriting and you can't tell if they're referencing the documents. Oh, my Lord, that is tough. But what if you have somebody who says, document 1 argued the following, and then they give a good summary, good analysis, good point of view, good outside. Well, now I know they're talking about document 1, right? So there is nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong with using the document number. Now, if you're in a class where the teacher is kind of like, no, I'm sorry, we're not going to do that because I want you to learn how to formally cite documents. Then the other way you can do it is by author's name. Okay, so you would take like the author's last name, use a verb that talks about how they're arguing or illustrating or documenting or whatever, do your analysis, and then at the end, what I would suggest you do, after the period of that sentence, put a parentheses and just put D1. Why? There's no requirement for this, by the way. No requirement at all. But you do it because now I, the grader, on Thursday afternoon, after I've gotten back from lunch and I'm picking up my 850th paper, I'm going to know clearly, hey, that student's talking about D1. And you know what's really cool? This student knows how to cite papers too. So that's going to put me in a really good mood when I'm looking at your paper. Okay, Logan, does that answer your question, or did I just say a lot of things that were just sort of like, Zucker, come on, you got to be clear here. So I just want to make sure that I answered. Yes. Okay, awesome. Got that one. If anybody else has questions, jump in, please. It makes it a lot more exciting for me, trust me, to answer questions. These are great questions. So I want to get to happy tones. Like I said, this was developed by a guy named Bill Pulaski. I know some of you guys, and Eric might jump in and say something about this. I know some teachers use the acronym HIP, H-I-P-P. So, again, the acronym, it all depends on what you want to do. It really is okay. Oh, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I'm so sorry if I don't. Is it Erov? I hope that's correct. I'm so sorry if I messed it up. It's a great name. I love that name. If you can tell me really quick, I'd be interested to know where it comes from as far as like background goes. So Erov, I think. I hope I got that right. It says here, oh, India. Awesome. Wow. That is a cool name. Thank you so much. Is it okay to keep saying Doc 1, 2, 3 talks about? Yes. Actually, Rob, it is. It really is okay to do that, to say like, because in world history, we don't grade off of rhetoric. We don't grade off of eloquent speech because that's not our job. We're not really teaching that. The English teachers are, and they do a great job at it. And I want them to teach that. But our job is really to teach argumentation. And so what we're really trying to do, and you'll see this in a few minutes when I give you a model, is I really want students to kind of like figure out, how do I make an argument? How do I support it with documents, outside evidence, analyze that well, and put into a coherent whole? I'm not really looking to see whether or not you're being formulaic. So you could be formulaic throughout the whole thing and say document 1 argues, document 2 argues. You'd be fine. Honestly, you're going to be okay off of that. So Rob, I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, please jump in and give me a little bit more off of that. Yes, awesome. Okay. Yes, I love it when I answer a question. Okay. Okay. So Bill Pulaski's model. Thank you, Rob, by the way. I really appreciate that. So Bill Pulaski's model. So whenever you're looking at documents, you might be wondering, okay, awesome, I can't cite them, I have to summarize them, but we kind of know you have to go deeper than that, right? You've got to analyze the documents. You got to talk about them. And in history, and this is what history is about, what makes us different from math or English or any other field, right? Our difference is context. And I always bring this home in my class. Like, this is so important. You got to remember this. Context, context, context. And not just context in the sense of like what surrounds a passage in a book, but context about the time period, because that changes everything in the way things are going about. I mean, to give a current example, take the example of coronavirus that's going on right now, right? I mean, that is a pretty huge scare that's happening around the globe. But here's what comforts me about this, because a lot of people are saying, can't we compare this to the Spanish flu that happened back during World War I? I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably hearing about this in class right now. Yes, we actually can compare it to the Spanish flu. The numbers are actually very similar, but there's a huge difference, and it's a good difference. I'm actually very pleased about this difference. When the Spanish flu took place, right, it took place during World War I, when countries were fighting against each other. There was very little interaction between countries that was positive. The healthcare system at that point was not professional. People didn't really completely understand when these kinds of things happened, so we didn't shut things down to kind of make sure that things could not pass back and forth. And so the context of that time period led to an epidemic, a pandemic, that really spread pretty quickly and killed a lot of people amidst poor healthcare, poor government organization. Yeah. Oh, Sunny, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. But the difference today is this: in a lot of our areas, people are kind of freaking out right now because all these places are closing down right now. Oh my gosh, things are bad. Actually, I take it, I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. I'm not a scientist. I actually take that as a good sign that we see a lot of places closing down. And here's why, is that we're closing down right now to make sure the epidemic doesn't spread. We're hitting this early on so that we don't overwhelm our hospitals. And so there's our big difference. Even if maybe there's some similarity in how these things are going, we seem, hopefully, we'll see, we seem to be better organized to be able to deal with this early on. That's context. That changes the way you're going to look at these epidemics and how they spread. That's why historical context is so important, okay? And that's why I really stress that you got to look at history that way. Okay, so that's historical context. Next up, intended audience. We want to make sure that we want to talk about who this audience is. Now, this is really important. By the way, I do see the question. I'm going to get to it in a minute. I'm just going to finish Happy Tones, and I promise I'm going to get to your question, because that is a really good question. It really is. I'm not kidding about that. It's an important question, so I want to get there. Intended audience, guys, is one that people really get confused a lot of times, because when you look at a document, it's like they don't tell me who the audience is. So how am I supposed to figure that out? That's why it's intended audience. You make an educated guess. Who do you think the audience is? And what you're going to get graded on is not whether or not they're the audience, because that would be a research paper, but whether you can justify your argument for the intended audience. Okay, next up, point of view. So here's the formula for point of view. And I would suggest taking this down. Point of view is not, and this is where my students always make a mistake, right? So I'll just use somebody from today that everybody kind of knows instead of using a weird name we don't know and that kind of thing. So think of like Gandhi, right? We all know who Gandhi is. Okay, that's an easy one for us to remember, right? But what I don't want to see on the AP World History test, if we see that name, is I don't want to see Gandhi for point of view, because anybody can copy down Gandhi. What I want to see is, here is a middle-class reformer who chose to ally himself with the untouchables in order to create reform so that they could break away from Great Britain amongst the mass of the Indian people. Notice what I did there. I started off with attribution. Who is this person in his social class, his gender, his national his national origin and identity? How does that impact then his agenda, what he's aiming for? Okay. And last off is why. Why did the author write the document? And then I said last off for the happy part, but the part that I've added onto this is tones. Is this passage ironic? Is it sarcastic? Is it positive? Well, why do you want to look at that? Well, because it'll give you a sense about the overall purpose of the document. And be careful with that, because actually a lot of times that trips up students. Years ago, we had a DBQ that dealt with the Green Revolution. I know a lot of you guys haven't gotten there yet, but it was about genetically modified foods. And there was a particular document that talked about people going out and doing shopping. And people just kind of on the test just wrote that down and said, oh, look, they're talking about shopping, blah, blah, blah. When actually the document was a sarcastic criticism of people going out and doing shopping and kind of not realizing the problems the Green Revolution was doing to the country. So you want to be really careful, guys. Look for the tone. Make sure you're getting a general sense of that. Okay, so again, I'm so sorry. I hope I get this name correct, because it is a beautiful name. Is it Umnia? I hope I got that right. Umnia? I hope I got that correct. And if you could tell me where your name comes from too, because that is an awesome name. So the question was, is it okay to underline your thesis? Okay, here's what I'm going to ask for you guys to do off of that. And I know it's going to sound nitpicky off of this, but just go with me on this for a minute. I, as a teacher, really would not mind. If you underline your thesis, honestly, it does not bother me at all. I've talked to other teachers who do the grading. They don't like it. And here's why. And I know it's going to sound crazy, and I apologize for this because I just think it's kind of a silly criticism in my mind, but this is the way they feel. So we want to try and be sensitive to our audience. You know, the teachers who do AP grading are really smart people. They really are. And they've done a lot of work over the years. Their feeling is this. So you probably have heard the saying of, like, you know, when you write an essay, you want to write it as if you're talking to an 8th grader who doesn't know anything, right? No. I've heard a better way of describing this. Don't write a paper to me, the teacher who's grading you, as if I'm an 8th grader and I don't know anything. Instead, what I want you to do instead is assume that I know this stuff, but that I'm looking for you to show me that you know this stuff. Okay, what do I mean by that? What I mean is, you know that I know this stuff, but what I'm looking for is that you can show me the information. Okay, now what does this have anything to do with underlining the thesis? Teachers who are at the grading find it very patronizing when students underline stuff and label it for them and say, hey, look, here's my thesis. Hey, look, here's my stuff. Because they kind of feel like you're trying to tell them that they just don't get it, kind of a thing. I would suggest not doing that. I would suggest instead what you should do is really work on the skills and let the teachers see that and put it in the places that people tend to put it in the most. So I'm going to give you a sense in a few minutes, a model of where to do that. So I hope that answers the question. Go ahead and tell me if it doesn't, or if you kind of are just like, I don't know if that really works for me. But anyways, that would be the answer that I would have as far as that goes. Oh, Arabic. Oh, that is awesome. Very cool. Thank you very much. Okay, so last off, before we get into the documents, I do want to talk about this because it's really important. It has to do with reading under time pressure. And it's really important, and I can't stress this enough. So I've learned these techniques for speed reading, and I think they just help overall on this. Sorry, I just want to draw off. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you know, Rav, I get it. And, you know, one thing I will say is this, guys. I'm actually going to give you a formula in a few minutes about how to hit the whole complexity issue that hopefully will make that clear to the teachers. I mean, I guess what I would say is this: teachers do tell me they find it patronizing. Now, the only thing about it, though, honestly, so if you guys want to underline or highlight, here's what I would say. We as teachers, when we grade at the end of the year, we cannot take away points because we feel bad, right? So like if you underlined your thesis and I'm reading your paper, and honestly, it would not bother me at all. I mean, you could put down thesis and put arrows and the whole thing. I'd be like, cool, this person just wants me to know where this is at. In fact, I'd be happy. I'd be like, thank you so much for pointing it out. That makes my job easy, right? But a lot of teachers find it patronizing. Well, here's the good news of the grading. Nobody can take away points because of that. So like if I'm grading your paper and yeah, I get offended because you highlight something or whatever, right? I can't then say, well, that's it. I'm taking away a point from this guy, whatever. No, in fact, if I do something like that, I'm going to get called out for it. Because what happens at the grading is people backread me. And if they see I didn't give you points and you got the points, then they're going to say, why didn't you give them the points? And if I said, well, because he highlighted it, it bothered me, they're going to be like, yeah, that's not a good reason. He had a good argument. So what I would say is this, you know, I like putting teachers in a good mood, but if you really feel like you want to underline or highlight or do that, you know something? Go for it. Because honestly, even if it offends them a little bit, they can't do anything about it. I just like putting people in a good mood because I think it puts more of a positive spin to your essay. But yeah, if that's what works for you, then go for it. So anyways, back to this. So thank you, Araf, for bringing that up. So when you're going to the documents under time pressure, I can imagine as you're doing that, it's sort of like, wow, there's a lot of information, right? How are you supposed to do this? So what I want to give to you guys is a sense of what's called speed reading. And this is good too, like when you're reading long articles or books or stuff like that, but especially for documents, like how are you going to deal with them? Here's what I would suggest you do. What I would suggest is read, when you get to a document, read the first and then the last line. And you want to read it not quickly, not slowly, but kind of in the middle of that. Get a sense about like what the document is. Then skim through the lines that are in the middle. Okay, so the reason why you're doing that is typically most authors are going to state like their main idea, first and last line, skim for the details. By the way, that's true with books and articles too. You know, as students, we like to read the entire book from start to finish. It seems to make the most sense. But actually, to be quite honest, not necessarily a good strategic way to read. Now, when you're reading for fun, you're reading a novel, yeah, front to end makes perfect sense. But when you're reading and you're under time pressure, whether it be in a DBQ or if it's for homework at night, skim through the beginning, skim through the end, or slow down beginning and end, skim to the middle, get some big ideas, and that's going to give you an understanding of things, you know, in that time period. Next up, remember at the very beginning, I talked about doing a gist of the essay. So you want to take a look at like 7 to 10 words, maybe at the most. Like, what is this document about? Okay, and then move on to the next document. And one thing I would really suggest, guys, try to be as careful as possible not to second guess yourself. Like, get a general idea of the document and then move on. This is not your honors English class, not your AP English class, not your English class. This is not something where you're going to go deeper and deeper in the depth. You're just trying to build an argument. Okay, so it's fine to get like a gist and not to worry too much about that. Okay, so anyways, that's what I would suggest as far as like speed reading through the documents, just so you can get through them in a decent amount of time. Now, when you're doing all of this, what I'd like to get you guys into is something called the box method. And again, I want to give her credit for it. This comes from a friend of mine and a teacher named Paige Burkholder. And I think it's just so like intelligent to do it this way, because if you try and do happy tones on every document for every single one, it's going to be kind of hard to do that because there's not a lot of room. Okay, and so here's what I want you to do for your box method. And I do see there is a question. I'm going to get to that, I promise. I'm just going to finish the box method really quick, and then I'm going to get to your stuff in just a second. I do promise that. I don't want to forget to do that. So please remind me if I do. So here's what you're going to do for the box method. Corner number 1, historical context. Oh, and by the way, these surround the document. Okay, so you would do these like annotating, okay, around the document. So corner number 1, historical context. Corner number 2, you're going to do a quick summary. Corner number 3, point of view and purpose. And then corner number 4, your related documents. This is where you group documents together. Now, I know you're probably like, holy cow, Zucker, you're giving us way too much stuff and you're going way too fast here. Don't worry. I'm going to show you how to do this in just a second, so you're going to see how this works. But before we do, I think Jay gave me a question here. Do you have to know your history to take the AP exam? Jay, I wish I could tell you you don't. Wouldn't that be awesome? Just come on in and take the test. Unfortunately, yes. You got to know your history. You do. But here's the good news, and I do get what you're saying here. I think what you're asking is actually a key question. My guess is, Jay, you're not asking me, can I come in the morning of and be like, I didn't study at all because I didn't want to, and now I'm going to take my test. That's not what you're asking. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that's what you're asking. I think what you're asking is, and it's the traditional question, do I have to know every fact that's out there in order to do well on this huge test that they're giving to me? And the answer to that question is no. That's not what you have to do. Yeah, I figured that was where you were coming from. And your fear, Jay, is like the fear that every student has, especially for AP World. And you're not the only one, by the way. We teachers do too. Years ago, I promised I would never, ever, ever in my life teach AP World history. You can see what happened to me there. The reason why I did that, I'm sorry, Katie, I'll get to your question in just a second. Thank you for asking that. The reason why I changed my mind was this. AP World History is not about memorizing every single fact out there. It's about the themes. It's about the big picture. Now, within each time period, there are key core facts you need to know. And you do need to know them because that's going to help you to illustrate how things are going. And I'm sure now as we're getting closer to the AP exam, I know we're all in denial right now. The AP exam seems very far away. We got like 2.5 months until we're there. But we are getting closer and closer to that. So how do you get ready for that exam when there's so many facts out there, right? Well, I'm sure all of you guys have a review book. You probably have, my guess is most of you probably have AMSCO. Maybe some have Princeton. Maybe some of you have Barron's. There are a whole bunch of them that are out there, right? I would suggest go to those books because every single one of them does a really good job of creating like core facts for every single major time period. Start making flashcards for those. And my favorite, of course, of all this is Quizlet. I don't know if it is for you guys, but it is for me. Just because Quizlet is online, it's easy to store. You can shuffle things up. You can play games with it, the whole thing. I would suggest go there and start making for the core terms. Start making those Quizlet cards. And, make it easy on yourself. Start with where you are in your classes. If right now you're in, Unit 7 and you're studying about the world wars, that's where you get started with your Quizlets. And you start making those, okay? That way it stays current for your classes. Then as time goes on, you can go back and do the other things. Yes, Eric's point is so central. That's a great way of putting it, Eric. Thank you so much. I don't know if you guys caught that. Again, Eric, fellow teacher, awesome fellow teacher, argued here that he tells his kids that they don't need to know everything, but they need to know something. I think that's a really good point to make there. It's not that you have to know every single emperor and every single date and every single battle, but you got to know the core things. That's really important. Okay, I want to go back to Katie's question really quick because I think it might have gotten out of line for you. So Katie, hopefully you can see that now. And what I said here was, as you do the documents, try and tailor them down to about 7 to 10 words. Now, when I say that, this is where my students get all freaked out. And I have my poor students who are sophomores, and sophomores are going through a lot of stuff, and I get it. And so because of that, whenever they see that, they become very formulaic, and they think that somehow I'm going to grade them on whether or not they have 7 to 10 words. I'm not grading nobody's going to get graded on having 7 to 10 words on all this. You're getting graded on your arguments. So, if you have 6 words or if you have 12 words, nobody cares. The reason why I say 7 to 10 words is that you have to move quickly through these documents when you take the DBQ Unchained Pressure. So you don't want to be writing paragraphs summarizing. You want to do it as quickly as possible, as concisely as possible. So do not hang yourself up. When you are writing a timed DBQ, do not sit there at document 1 and be like, I did 11 words. I got to get it down to 10. No, you don't. Just move on. You got it. You're all good. Okay. Okay. So yeah, no problem. So having said that, then we are going to now check out an example of how to do this. I want to show you this. I've got it over here, I believe. Yeah. So let me just make sure really quick. Can everybody see my Google Doc? I want to make sure that that is clear to everybody and that you are not seeing my presentation right now. Okay, I'm just going to have to move my presentation out of the way. So hold on one second. No. Okay. I can't see the doc. Okay. I'm wondering if. Okay, so this could be a little bit of a problem. I think I know why. I think it has to do. Eric, do you have any idea of how I think my presentation, drop the link? Okay. Got it. So let me see if that'll work. Hold on one second. Almost there. Almost there. Okay. Oh, yeah. Let me just make sure really quick. So I'm doing some things on the fly here. Sorry, guys. We're going to get there in just a second, I promise. Almost there. Yeah, so you should be able to see it if you go on that link that I just did. You guys got it? Okay, good. Excellent. Okay. So if you guys go to that link, you should be able to see it. Oh, my gosh. I see all of you guys popped up really quick. Awesome. Okay. Glad that worked out. Phew. Eric, thank you for being here. Okay, so what I want to do now is take the DBQ from last year and work on it a little bit with you guys. Now, I'm going to model this for you guys for a little bit. And then there's one document that actually I want you guys to do some analysis on that I think is really important. So we'll take a look at that in just a second. Before we do that, let's go up to the prompt. And there are a few things I want to point out about the prompt. I know I talked about this a little while ago, but I want to point out a few more things I think are really important about this prompt. So the prompt last year for the DBQ was the following. Evaluate the extent to which the Portuguese transformed maritime trade in the Indian Ocean in the 16th century. Okay, so we're going to start off here because I think this is really important. I cannot stress this enough. Guys, this is the language you are going to see on the test. And when students see that language, you guys are going to be so far ahead of the curve. Ooh, I'm going to make such a bad, this is such a, Eric, I'm going to do it. This is where I'm just going to, this is why Fiveable's awesome right here. There we go. I'm doing advertising. Yep, here's where we go. The fact that you are here and that you know this is the language you're going to face is going to give you a huge thing on the curve. And here's why. So many students see this and it's like the first time somebody made it conscious for them for whatever reason, and they freak out and they're like, what does that mean? Evaluate the extent. And it's like, oh, I don't know what to do. But here's the cool thing about it, guys. It's really pretty simple. The reason why they give you this language is because they want you to be able to give an argument that shows that there's not just one answer, that there's actually a degree of possible answers here. So when you see this, don't freak out. Basically what it means is that you don't have to say either or, yes or no. You're going to be able to say, yeah, overall, there was some transformation that took place here. And in some cases, there weren't transformations that took place here. So that's the cool thing about knowing this language, is that it gives you some breathing room to give some different arguments, okay? So here's the next one then that becomes important. Evaluate the extent to which Portuguese transformed maritime trade. Okay, right here, this is, oh, I can't stress how important this was last year. And I bet that, okay, green is gonna work, good. Here's why that's so important. Okay, I'm gonna see if you guys can catch this. What historical thinking skill do you guys think this is? I'm gonna see if you guys can catch it. I'm challenging you. Let's see if you got it. Go ahead and type it in. What historical thinking skill do you think they're doing? Sunny thinks it's causation. It's a good guess. I don't think that's bad. That's pretty good. Anybody else got an idea off of it? Change. Rob's going for change. Anybody else? Jay's going continuity. Continuity, it's not bad. It's not bad. Okay. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Okay. Change because of the transform. Good, Logan. Okay, so I'll be honest with you. When I first saw this, I was thinking cause and effect as well, which is fine. Honestly, if you wrote an essay based upon cause and effect off of this, you'd be fine. I mean, it makes sense, right? Transformed is a cause, the effect is maritime trade. But this actually is a change in continuity question. And here's why this is so important. And I'm not trying to, like, if you thought it was cause and effect, I thought it was cause and effect too the first time I saw it. Don't worry about it, not a big deal. But here's why that's so important. This is going to set you up for complexity. You're going to be able to argue after we're done with this, both change and continuity, and that's going to help you to set up your thesis. So you've got two different themes that you can work with for change and continuity off of this, okay? So anyway, so we got evaluate the extent. Here's our historical thinking skill, right? Here, right here, is what I talked about with that whole inspect, sprite, spice, or if you go with Eric's idea, pieces. We've got our economic theme right here, right? So now we know what the impact of this question is. Awesome. There's one more thing that's really important here. Do you guys catch it? Let's see. I'm going to challenge you again. Here we go. Who's going to catch it? There's still one more thing we've got to notice here. I'm going to see if you guys catch it. What's the last thing in this question that you have got to catch? Rob thinks it's 16th century. Anybody else? Anybody else? Or you could second a Rob's comment. That's fine. Portuguese. Portuguese is important. I'll go with that, Logan. Not bad. Not bad. I feel like I should do like the Jeopardy theme here. Do, 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 do. So actually, I'm going to go with the Roth. And here's why. So all those things are important. Don't get me wrong. They really are really important. But this is so central. And guys, it's not just for this question. Like in general, like I can't stress this enough. You've got to know the time period they give you, and they will always give you a time period in the question, always. And the reason why they do that is because you've got to stay within that time period. If you go outside of that time period, you can write an amazing essay and you'll get no points. You got to stay in that time period. So guys, I can't stress enough, you've got to make sure that you know what the time period is, okay? So anyways, that's how we analyze a prompt. Whenever you guys are coming across this for long essays, DBQs, the whole thing, you want to get there as quickly as possible. Wow, we're running out of time, got to go quick. Okay, so here's what I mean by the box method. Again, going to give her more credit. Paige Burkholder, awesome stuff that she did here. So anyways, here's what the idea is, and you want to do it for every single document. So what you do is, and this is very formal on this Google Doc. It's going to be a mess on your document, right? Because you're going to have to do this under time pressure, and you're going to be doing it handwritten. You're not going to be doing it typing, right? But what you want to do is you want to put around the document the whole like happy analysis, okay, or HIP or whatever you use. So like if I'm reading through this document, I'm going to go to the source first. And when I go to the source, I see that this source was this advice given in the year 1500 by Muslim merchants. That's going to be really important. And if I go deeper into this, it's about the Portuguese expedition. Okay, right there, I already get some ideas about what this document is by going to the source. If this source is being given in 1500 by Muslim merchants about the Portuguese, it might be positive. Maybe the Muslims are saying it's really cool to have the Portuguese around. It might be negative. Maybe the Muslims don't like the fact that the Portuguese are around. But at least it gives me that sense of like, hey, these Muslims are kind of looking at the Portuguese and wondering, like, are they doing a good thing, right? Now I go to the first sentence. Your Majesty, we are astonished that you should lower yourself by receiving these Portuguese enemies into your kingdom. Okay, already there's my tone. This is a negative document. Look at what they're doing here. They're saying you should not be lowering yourself to these Portuguese people, right? Now I go to the very bottom. We say these things to you to get out of goodwill rather than any desire for profit. For if you do not listen to our advice, there are other cities on India's which we would conduct our trade in spices. Okay, so they're saying you better not be liking these Portuguese or we're going elsewhere for our business, right? Okay, now a lot of times students will read this and they'll just take it literally. So if you look in here, they even talk about at one point, the Portuguese enemies are like pirates rather than merchants, right? Those Portuguese pirates, right? That's not the literal interpretation here. What we have here for our summary is we have basically, Muslim merchants criticizing Portuguese. If I could type, that would be good, right? Trade. Now, notice, guys, that's all I have to do for my summary. I don't have to do a ton of work here. Remember, 7 to 10 words. That's all I need, right? My historical context. Okay, so over here, I'm going to think, well, what do I know about this time period? What kind of, oh yeah, I got it, right? This is a time period of Indian Ocean trade. Okay, Portuguese are sailing there, so I can think of like, okay, navigation, like technologies. Okay, maybe Atlantic trade. So now I've got some specific like historical context. Now, here's where it gets interesting. So I want you to think of for a moment, sorry about this, got that out. So I want you to think of for a moment here about point of view here. Let me see if you guys can get this. Guys, what do you guys think is the point of view here? What do you think, what would be your analysis when you look at this of like who these people are and why they're saying this? What's their agenda? What do you think? Wait and see if we can get some answers in here quick. We're running out of time, so I will give just a few seconds off of this and see what you guys think. To Portuguese, get them out of the Indian Ocean. Okay, good. Rob, I think that's really cool. Yeah, absolutely. I like that a lot. I think that's really good. Merton, want to share the wealth? Yeah, good. Awesome. No, Logan, that's really good. That's pretty awesome. Convincing we're going to take control. Whoa, you guys are getting it. Awesome. No, you know, I was a little worried because sometimes students will go in this direction where they'll just say something like, oh, they're saying negative things about the Portuguese. That's not what's happening here. Oh, Rob, that's awesome. I love that. So we basically have Muslim merchants, okay, not wanting to share wealth. I'm going to add some things here, and power, okay, with the Portuguese. India. Yeah, that works. And that's all you guys. That's not me. That's all you guys. You guys got it. So notice what you did there. That's really awesome. Nicely done. So what I would do is I would start to use this then with all the documents. Okay. So I've gone and done this because I knew we weren't going to have a ton of time. So I went through each one of the documents and did this. So like for document 2, I'll just, it's kind of like, yeah, awesome, Sunny. Absolutely. No, you're right. They're getting worried that their pie is being taken away. Absolutely. Nicely done. So you know, I go through this in like document 2, you know, I start to notice, okay, a lot of similar, you know, historical context here with the Portuguese exploration, new navigational technologies and that. But here I noticed that the Portuguese, in this case, they claim they wanted to kick the Muslims out of this region and establish port cities. Okay, I go down to document 3, and here we've got the pepper trade. Now here it's a little bit different. On this particular one, I find out that the Portuguese wanted to ally with local Muslims. And here, you have this sort of like Portuguese official kind of like looking for a position there as an ambassador. I go down here to the next document and I look through this and the violence of the Portuguese come out. This is actually really important. Okay. Oh, good question. What is the last box for? I'll get to there in just a minute. Thank you, Rob. That actually is really important. I'm going to get there in just a second. So thank you. Document, but we're going to leave it blank for a minute. You'll see why. Document 5, again, about Portuguese violence, introducing violence and so forth. And then this local religious leader who's looking for allies, okay? Document 6, about European trade and European merchants who are trying to create like trade in the area. Now, this is the big one I wanted to get to, and then I'm going to get to Rob's question really quick. So this was the this was a document that tripped everybody up, okay? We have this box here, and we're going to do a quick analysis of it very quickly because I want to get to Rob's question and then finish up with something. So really quick on this box, guys, when you're taking a look at it, what do you think the context is for this, or summary or point of view? Like, what would you guys go with? Just going to give you a few seconds off of this and see what you guys think. I did not plan this out well. I should have talked faster. We don't have a lot of time left. My Lord, we only have 9 minutes. What do you guys think? What would you say is the context for this box? Just give you another 30 seconds here. I'm going to have to jump in really quick. It's being traded. Good. Nice. Awesome. So this is being traded to the Portuguese. Nice. I like that. Anything else that you guys can think of? Like, what's the point of view or what's the context? Any other ideas? Going once, going twice. I might have to jump in because we don't have a lot of time. So this particular document really trips students up. So I want to show you really quick how to deal with it. Whenever you get a picture, I want you guys to do something called quadrant analysis. Here's what that means. You're going to draw lines over this box. So you basically go a line down here, line over here, And then you're going to look at each quadrant. So you're going to look at this quadrant, you're going to look at the right-hand quadrant, look down here at the bottom quadrant, and so forth. And when you do, what you would end up seeing is you're going to see like these weird characters on here that at first come across as being sort of like, hey, these are like native to the region, right? And that would make sense because look at who made this. It's an inlaid box made in India for export to Portugal, right? And so it looks like, yeah, like Arav is right? This is a very like precious box of like Indian culture and so forth. But then if we look closer, I'm not so sure that's the case. Because look at how we have somebody hunting these animals, but the guy who's hunting doesn't look very Indian. In fact, he's got these breeches on that look a little European. And so what we see here for the point of view of this particular one is that this is a box made by Indian merchants, okay, for European consumption. In other words, what we're seeing happen here is Indians are entering into a market with Europeans, but notice that it's not our stereotype. Our stereotype is it was Europeans selling to Indians. In this case, no, it's Indians selling to Europeans, which suggests Indians at this point had more power than Europeans did. Okay, having said all that, what was that last box for that I have up here? The box of the related documents. Okay, when I'm reading through document 1 or document 2, I can't do anything with this box because at this point, I don't have enough information. When I'm done with document 1, what I can do, and when I go on to document 2 and document 3, I might be reading document 3 and be like, wait a second, hold on. This sounds really familiar. This whole notion of European trade sounds a heck of a lot like what's going on in document 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here and I'm going to say, you know something? Document 1 and document 3 seem to be organized around unstable European trade. Now, why do I want to do that? Because now what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to group documents. And this is actually going to set up for me the ability to set up a body paragraph. So like, let's say for a moment, I'm just going to make it up because of time. Let's say I keep reading and I'm like, oh, wait a second. And document 7. Yeah, that works too. Now, all of a sudden, I've got 3 documents I can use for my body paragraphs. So you can do this plus one thing that I put down here at the bottom, and you could do this in your notes when you actually do a real DBQ, is that you can just come down here and say, okay, what are my themes going to be for this? And, you know, the theme might be something along the lines of, you know, like violence. Okay, my theme might be, hey, European trade. Or remember the question was about change in continuity, right? So we could say that over time, Europeans gained more advantages, right, in trade. Or we could switch that. I mean, based on that box, maybe what we're going to say is over time, Indian merchants gain more advantage. And then what I would do is I would put down, you know, which documents go in here. So I'm making this up at this point, so they're not exactly accurate, but I might be something like this. I might be like D, you know, D5, and D6 work here, and D7 and D4 work here. And now all of a sudden, I've got the ability now to organize my essay, okay? So now what I want to do is take us back to this presentation. We're going to finish off. I want to give you a model of how to do that. And I know we only have about 4 minutes. So I want to show you really quick, you know, how you do something like this. So once you've, let me go through the process again. You analyze the prompt, we read through the documents, we group the documents. Now what we got to do is set up a pattern. So you want to do your pattern basically on the following things. You can either do like historical thinking skills, like change in continuity. You could do negative positive effects. You could do like controversy. That's another way to organize your stuff. Then you want to quickly create for yourself like a graphic organizer. Some people really like to have something visual. So maybe you want to make a quick mind map on your paper. Nothing extensive, just something quick that you want to do. Other people like to make an outline. And when I say an outline, I'm not talking about all those Roman numerals and all that makes it really hard. Just do a quick outline, okay? Okay, now, I know I'm rushing through, I apologize. Here is the model I want to give you for your essay. And by the way, you can use this for long essays as well. Here's the model I would suggest setting up for your essay. Start off with the introduction. You're going to do contextualization. 3 big themes to frame your essay. At the end of the introduction, you're going to give a counter thesis and a thesis. And I'll give you an example of like a formula to think of, okay? In this case, we had like change in continuity or cause and effect. So I would go, well, A led to B because, C led to a more significant D effect because. Now I know you're like, whoa, wait a second, a lot of numbers and letters and symbols there. What are you talking about, Zucker? What I mean is that if you take a look, while A led to B because, that would be sort of like either your change or your continuity. And then the opposite in the second half, C led to a more significant D effect because. So this sets up complexity for your essay, okay? And you can do this for your long essay, you can do it for your DBQ. This formula works throughout. Now, here's what each one of your body paragraphs should look like. This is an example of a body paragraph that you would repeat like 2 or 3 times. A topic sentence, you gotta have that, so important, because that allows you to develop an argument, okay? Then you're gonna provide a document. Now, here's so important, guys. You've got to have layers to this document. You really do in order to get all the points. So what I want you to do is this. Give the document with a summary. Make that like 1 sentence. You know, document 1 was about blah, blah, blah. Tell me how it supports your argument. That's the commentary part. The commentary is how does this support your topic sentence? Then do an analysis of the document by choosing audience or point of view or purpose. In each body paragraph, you're going to do this 2 or 3 times. How do you know how many times to do it? How you group the documents and making sure you just hit all the documents. The actual like College Board rubric only requires that you use 6 documents. I want you to use all 7. That's what I require of my students. That way, if you make a mistake, you got something to back you up. So use all 7, and you just split them up into your groups. And then finish every body paragraph with an outside detail. Now, to be quite honest, again, I'll be transparent here. You only need 1 outside detail for your entire essay to get that point. So why do we do more than that? Because if you make a mistake, you have plenty of others. And it just kind of helps to wrap up the body paragraph, okay? So we were going to take a look at a student example. I'm so sorry because we are running out of time here. Oh, good question. What do you do if you don't understand a document? Okay, so first of all, good news, Rob, you only have to have 6 documents. You don't have to have 7 in order to get the analysis point. And to get the first point, there are 2 points you can get. One is a summary of the documents. In that case, you only need 3. For the second point, which is what I want you to get, so you can get 2 points, right? You got to analyze 6 documents. So if you make a mistake on 1, you're okay. That's why I want you to go with 7. But to get to your real question here, what do you do if you don't understand a document? Remember, this is not your honors English class. You don't have to do everything perfectly. You don't have to go in depth on this, right? You want to get the overall gist. So the way that you do that is, number 1, go to the source, okay, and ask, who is this person who's writing this? Number 2, put it in the context of the prompt. If you know the prompt is about Portuguese maritime trade, and you know, okay, in that area, there's the Portuguese, there are the Hindus, there are the Muslims, then that helps you to kind of frame the document and say, well, what do I know about those groups from that time period? Then, first sentence, last sentence, skim the middle, say, you know, overall, what are they trying to say here? I don't get that word in the 5th sentence. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And the end of it, I'm really lost. But the beginning of it, I kind of get a sense, like this guy is trying to be critical, right? That way, at least you can give a general understanding. This is a document that's criticizing the Portuguese trade. You may not understand all the reasons why, but you get an idea of it. Okay, does that help to understand that? I'm gonna wait and see if that helps Arav out. If it doesn't, Arav, tell me. Okay, great, cool. So guys, it's 6:01, so we are done, but I'm here for you. So before I take off, are there any questions that you guys have that you'd really like me to answer? You feel like, the DBQ is still kind of freaking me out and I don't know what to do. Help me out, Zucker, save me. Is there anything that I'm missing for you guys that you'd really like? Before I take off and let you guys go free, get some dinner. I don't know, maybe you guys have eaten already. Any other questions that you guys have? Oh, thank you. Rob, thank you so much for that. So the structure for complexity, great question. So there's actually about 4 or 5 different ways for you to hit complexity. One way of hitting complexity is to talk about something across regions. So like if we're talking about maritime trade in India, you could talk at that time period about European exploration in Mesoamerica. That's one way of doing it. Another way is across time periods. So like one thing I have my students do is in their concluding paragraph, they will make a tie from whatever we talked about into the next time period. So like for this one, you could say, you know, the maritime trade eventually led into like European exploration and then European industrialization. It's another way you could do it. The easiest way for me, though, that I teach to my students is this. You want to create a counter thesis structure. Okay, and you can create a counter thesis either based upon historical thinking skill, so have like change versus continuity, Or you can make it based upon controversy. Okay, so like in this case, the Portuguese made a lot of changes, but overall they didn't make a lot of changes. And you could have that kind of structure to it. Okay, you could do it by theme. You could say, you know, the Portuguese made these political changes, but they also made these economic changes. Then what you're going to do is in your first body paragraph, explain your counter thesis. Give the evidence for why somebody would see that counter thesis as being valid. In your body paragraphs after that, I want you to defend your thesis. So now what you're doing is throughout your essay, you're giving me a complex argument. You're able to show that you understand that there are multiple perspectives to an argument. You can't just have a counter thesis in your introduction. You've got to have that plus arguments throughout the essay. And you do that by having that first body paragraph explain your counter thesis, 2 body paragraphs that are going to defend your thesis. How does that help you? Does that work? Or is that just complex and like Zucker, I have no idea what you're talking about? I'm gonna wait and see if that helped out. I'm a little worried I'm not getting a response here. I'm wondering if I complete, yes, it worked. Okay, any other questions from anybody else? Going once, going twice. Okay, I think we're done. Okay, if anybody has anything, I'm gonna get out. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I know it's late out where you are at. Sunny, no problem. I'm hoping this helped you out. You guys have been awesome. Thank you so much for participating in this. I love it when I get to be around smart young people who are just amazing. Rob, it's early in the morning. Oh no, I'm so sorry. So I'm guessing you're probably off to school at this point after this. Wow. So you're working with me early in the morning and then taking off to school? That's impressive. Okay. Thank you guys so much for being out here today, and good luck. I know you're going to do awesome on the AP test. Keep working hard. Keep doing all the stuff that you're doing, because trust me, if you're here, that means that you have a ton of energy into doing this. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing everything that you guys are doing. Keep up the hard work, and we will see you the next time on Fiveable. Yes. See you later. Bye.